Let's dive into Tweepy. Tweepy is an open source Python package that helps us access the Twitter API through Python. Tweepy abstracts away Twitter's API endpoints through the use of classes and methods. Tweepy is built on top of the Twitter API, so we get to use basically all of the API functionality but through an easier Python interface. Tweepy has great documentation, and as mentioned in their documents and reviewed earlier, we can install Tweepy using pip. To do this, we would run pip install Tweepy. Now, we've already installed it, so we should get a confirmation that, yes, this requirement is already satisfied. Now let's look at the basics of how to use Tweepy. Let's create a new file called tweepytests.py. To use Tweepy, we typically follow a 4-step process. First, like any Python package, we need to import Tweepy. Then, we would need to set the authentication credentials where we will use our environment variables. Twitter requires all requests to use OAuth for authentication. So here we would call tweepy.oauth handler, and this is where we would put in our consumer key and our consumer secret. And we also need to set the access token. And again, this is where we would add in our access token and our access token secret. And let's actually set this to a variable auth, and then we can call the auth to set the access token. Remember that as an example, I have the placeholder text in here, but what we can actually do to start before we get into calling our environment variables is replacing it with our current key, our current secret, our access token, and our access secret. Now I'm going to regenerate these so it's okay that I'm showing them in this tutorial. But remember, we're using our tokens that we generated from Twitter in the previous lesson. And in the next section, we'll look at a better way to store and call these. Now, what we would need to do is create a new API object. So this API object will be calling Tweepy API and then pass in all of our authentication credentials. From here, our API object is ready to use one of the many methods that Twitter API offers. We can invoke an API method to send back a Tweepy model class instance. This will include the data returned from Twitter, which we can use for our Twitter bot. So here, if we save this and then go back to our terminal and we run Python Tweepy test, it was a success since we didn't get an error. Great. Let's look at Tweepy further in our next lesson.